There is a reason the Book of Ruth feels so different when it comes after Judges. At the end of Judges, Israel is collapsing from the inside. Violence fills the land. Tribes turn on tribes. Everyone does what is right in his own eyes. And then, without noise, without armies, without another national disaster, the next story opens with a widow, a famine, a field, and a foreign woman named Ruth. Why would the Bible move from civil war to harvest fields? Why would a small family story come after one of the darkest national stories in Scripture? And how does Ruth quietly answer the ending of Judges? The Book of Ruth begins with a line that matters. In the days when the judges ruled, there was a famine in the land. That is Ruth chapter 1, verse 1. The story belongs to the same dark period. Ruth does not erase the world of Judges. Ruth shows what faithfulness looks like inside it. A man named Elimelech leaves Bethlehem in Judah because of famine. With him are his wife Naomi and their two sons, Mahlon and Chilion. They go to Moab and remain there. Then Elimelech dies. Naomi is left with her two sons. The sons marry Moabite women, Orpah and Ruth. After about 10 years, both sons also die. Now Naomi is left without her husband and without her sons. That is how Ruth begins. Not with triumph, not with rescue, with loss. The Judges period was not dark only on battlefields. It was dark in homes, dark in empty places at the table, dark in futures people thought they had and then watched disappear. When Naomi hears that the Lord has visited his people and given them food, she rises to return from Moab. Ruth and Orpah go with her for a time. Then Naomi tells them to return. She does not pretend the road ahead will be easy. Her life has become bitter. Her prospects are empty. She cannot offer them security or a clear future. Orpah eventually kisses Naomi and returns. Ruth does not. And here the story gives one of the clearest moments of covenant loyalty in the Old Testament. Ruth says, "Do not urge me to leave you or to return from following you. For where you go, I will go, and where you lodge, I will lodge. Your people shall be my people, and your God my God. Where you die, I will die, and there will I be buried." That is Ruth, chapter 1, verses 16 through 17. In Judges, people tore apart covenant bonds. In Ruth, a Moabite widow clings in covenant loyalty. At the end of Judges, Israel looks fractured, violent, unstable, and morally confused. In Ruth, the answer does not begin with national reform. It begins with one act of steadfast faithfulness. One woman stays. One woman binds herself to Naomi's people, and to Naomi's God. When Naomi and Ruth arrive in Bethlehem, the town is stirred because of Naomi. But Naomi does not tell the women to call her Naomi, which means pleasant. She says, "Call me Mara," which means bitter, "for the Almighty has dealt very bitterly with me." She says she went away full, and the Lord has brought her back empty. The text lets that grief sit there, but the final line of the chapter gives the first hint that emptiness may not be the end. They came to Bethlehem at the beginning of barley harvest. That detail is not filler. It is the first crack of light. In chapter 2, Ruth asks Naomi if she may go to the field and glean among the ears of grain after him, in whose sight she shall find favor. Naomi tells her to go. Ruth enters a field, and the text says that she happened to come to the part of the field belonging to Boaz, who was of the clan of Elimelech. That is one of the great quiet turns in the story. Judges often shows public collapse. Ruth shows quiet providence. No trumpet sounds. No miracle interrupts the sky. A widow walks into a field, and the field belongs to the right man. Boaz arrives from Bethlehem and says to the reapers, "The Lord be with you." And they answer, "The Lord bless you." Even that is striking after Judges. Here is a man of standing whose words are marked by blessing, not chaos. Boaz notices Ruth and asks who she is. He hears of her loyalty to Naomi, how she left her father and mother and her native land and came to a people she had not known before. Then Boaz says, "The Lord repay you for what you have done, and a full reward be given you by the Lord, the God of Israel, under whose wings you have come to take refuge." That line is a turning point. Ruth did not merely travel with Naomi. She came to take refuge under the wings of the God of Israel. This is how Ruth answers Judges, not first by solving national politics, but by showing true refuge. When everybody does what is right in his own eyes, safety cannot come from human will. It must come under the wings of the Lord. Boaz then shows Ruth unusual kindness. He tells her not to glean in another field. He tells her to stay close to his young women. He makes sure she has water. At mealtime, he invites her to eat. He gives orders to his young men not to reproach her and even to leave grain for her. This is not random niceness. This is righteous generosity. In the middle of the Judges era, the book shows that there were still people who feared God, honored his ways, and used strength to protect instead of exploit. Naomi sees what Ruth brings home and asks where she gleaned. When Ruth says the man's name was Boaz, Naomi recognizes the significance immediately. She says, "May he be blessed by the Lord, whose kindness has not forsaken the living or the dead." Then Naomi explains that Boaz is a close relative, one of their redeemers. That word matters. Redeemer. The darkness of Judges left Israel looking like a people that could destroy itself. Ruth introduces the language of redemption. Not because sin is ignored, and not because suffering is denied, but because God is still preserving a way forward. In chapter 3, Naomi seeks rest for Ruth and tells her to go to the threshing floor after Boaz has lain down. Ruth is told to note the place where he lies, go, uncover his feet, and lie down. The text does not invite reckless imagination here. It presents a risky but deliberate appeal within the story's own logic, and Ruth answers Naomi, "All that you say I will do." At midnight, Boaz is startled and turns over, and behold, a woman lay at his feet. He asks who she is. Ruth answers, "I am Ruth, your servant. Spread your wings over your servant, for you are a redeemer." That line echoes chapter 2. Boaz had said, Ruth came under the wings of the Lord. Now Ruth asks Boaz to spread his wing, his covering, over her as Redeemer. The book is showing that the Lord's refuge often arrives through righteous obedience, lawful mercy, and covenant faithfulness worked out in ordinary human action. Boaz responds with honor, not exploitation. He blesses Ruth. He recognizes her loyalty. He tells her not to fear. He will do for her all that she asks. But he also tells the truth. There is a Redeemer nearer than he. Again, Ruth answers Judges by refusing shortcut morality. The book does not chase redemption by ignoring righteousness. Boaz will act, but he will act rightly. In chapter 4, Boaz goes to the gate and sits down. When the nearer Redeemer passes by, Boaz calls him to sit. He gathers 10 men of the elders of the city and presents the matter plainly. Naomi is selling the parcel of land that belonged to Elimelech. The nearer Redeemer first says he will redeem it. Then Boaz adds the full cost of redemption. Acquiring the field also involves Ruth the Moabite, the widow of the dead, in order to perpetuate the name of the dead in his inheritance. At that, the nearer Redeemer declines. So Boaz lawfully redeems. There is no chaos at the gate, no mob, no deception, no civil war. There are witnesses, truth, order, and a public act of covenant responsibility. After the end of Judges, that scene feels almost shocking in its steadiness. The elders and the people at the gate bless Boaz and Ruth. They pray that the woman coming into his house may be like Rachel and Leah, who together built up the house of Israel. Then the Lord gives Ruth conception, and she bears a son. And now Naomi, who said she came back empty, is surrounded by women saying, "Blessed be the Lord, who has not left you this day without a redeemer." They say this child shall be to her a restorer of life and a nourisher of her old age, because her daughter-in-law, who loves her, has given birth to him, and she is more to Naomi than 7 sons. That line is astonishing. The foreign widow who came with Naomi in grief becomes the woman through whom Naomi's life is restored. Then the final turn comes. The child is named Obed. He was the father of Jesse, the father of David. That is not an accidental ending. Ruth begins in the days when the judges ruled, and it ends by pointing toward David. So how does Ruth answer the dark ending of Judges? It shows that even in the worst era, the Lord had not abandoned his people. It shows that while public life in Israel could be corrupt and violent, God was still at work in hidden faithfulness. It shows that covenant loyalty still mattered. It shows that righteousness, kindness, lawful redemption, and humble faith were not gone from the earth. And it shows that out of famine, widowhood, foreignness, and bitterness, God was quietly preserving the line that would lead to Israel's king. Read carefully, and Ruth does more than soften the ending of Judges. It proves that darkness never had the final word. And for Christian readers, the line to David opens even further. David's line leads forward to the Messiah. That does not erase Ruth's own story, and it should not flatten the book into a shortcut prophecy chart. But it does mean the book belongs inside the larger redemption story that reaches its fulfillment in Jesus Christ. So after the horror of Judges, the Bible does not immediately answer with spectacle. It answers with loyalty, with refuge, with a field, with a redeemer, with a child, and with a genealogy moving history toward a king. That is why Ruth matters. That is why Ruth belongs here. And that is why this quiet book is not small at all. If this changed the way you read Ruth after Judges, stay with the series and share which contrast hit you hardest.